Good Yontif. I am filled with overwhelming love and appreciation for the kindness that this congregation, that you have showered upon my wife Michelle and me and our family as we endured 3 painful family transitions. The death of Terry, mother to my wife Michelle and wife to our congregant Murray, on the same day that my mother Linda had a life-altering second stroke, and then the sudden death just 2 months ago of my dad Ken, our kid's papa. Nothing in my 28 years as a rabbi prepared me for the ongoing sadness that we have faced. In under 5 months, our family lost 2 grandparents and nearly a third. My mom is recovering slowly. And as any of you who have lost loved ones know, we too are recovering slowly. Part of my mourning process has been to write, doing what our congregant Phil Gurin described as taking dictation from my heart. The poetry I am writing captures for me the searing of my soul and the realignment of the axes of my life. Some of these poems are available on my personal website, where I aim to share what someone called the secret life of the mourner. I considered using these poems tonight as my sermon, since one of the primary purposes of Yom Kippur is to propel us to prefigure our deaths, to think about what it would be like not to be here, in order to shock our souls into realigning our lives with our values. But instead, I want to leave death behind for a bit and focus instead on life. I recently learned with Rabbi Donnell Hartman of Jerusalem Shalom Hartman Institute, who offered a lesson about the sequence of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Did you ever wonder, why does Rosh Hashanah come before Yom Kippur? I mean, you would think that first we would be called to do the hard work of Yom Kippur, the intense, sometimes painful self-reflection of sizing up, of repairing, of redirecting our lives. And then only afterward would we be ready to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, a new year, right? But no. Jewish tradition purposely reversed that expected order. Why? According to Rabbi Hartman, only when we perceive the blessings in our lives, only when we have celebrated and embraced what is good, will we have the inner strength and the courage that's necessary to face that which isn't. Rabbi Hartman believes that we embrace change not from the bottom, not from facing our failures or inadequacies, or the mess we have made of our lives or this world. We embrace change, he says, when we foresee that our lives could be something different, when we remember our blessings and imagine the possibility of a more beautiful future. It was like that, for our ancient Israelite ancestors who endured 430 years of slavery. When did the exodus from Egypt really begin? Not when God spoke to Moses at the burning bush to send him to Egypt. Not when Moses went down to Egypt to tell old Pharaoh to let my people go. No. The 430 years of slavery in Egypt moved towards its stunning conclusion earlier, in chapter 2 of Exodus, when the people cried out to God, and God remembered the covenant. Now, this was not the first time that the Israelites cried out to God. Really? No way. There ain't no way that the Israelites, suffering bone-crunching oppression, would not have cried out once, 100 times daily from that brutality. No, what happened in Exodus chapter 2 is that the character of the Israelites' cries changed fundamentally, because somehow, for some reason, the Israelites began to imagine a different future. A future devoid of slavery, a future filled with hope and dreams, freedom and fellowship, lives characterized by kindness and compassion and justice. And because they started seeing the possibility, they finally discerned that kol demama daka, that still small voice of God, a voice that had been calling out to them all along. Finally, they sang and they danced about tikva, hope. So by the time Moses and Miriam and Aaron appeared on the scene, the Israelites were already primed. They were prepared to listen, to push through their fear, to embrace the possibility of freedom. The Exodus had to wait until the people were ready to embark on a better path. But never underestimate the difficulty of that paradigm shift. We all know people, right? People in the throes of a painful existence who, much to our frustration, cannot push through to a better future. The addict entering rehab for the third time, unable to beat back the pull of the booze or the gambling, the porn or the pills. As painful as it is, the slickness of that sickness masks the promise of something more promising. And most of us know women and some men living in abusive relationships who have tried to break away even 6 or 7 times before finally they fly away toward freedom. Even with all that pain and the very real fear of physical retribution, it seems that it's the fear of the future that obscures what seems obvious to others. And how many of us in this room, worshiping out in the live stream, how many of us that we know endure the darkness in our lives? The job that sucks the joy, the simcha from our souls. That fear of embarrassment that envelops our existence. The secret that sustains our depravity. Like the ancient Israelites, we seem to endure the status quo, in part because we cannot envision something different. Freedom, therefore, waits for us until we can imagine a life without that draining, debilitating pain. So tonight, I don't want to talk about death. Instead, I want to share with you a vision that might make you, like the Israelites, cry out, enough. A vision that might make you imagine that you can live more and laugh more and love more. And the secret is simple. You don't need to wait. I want to introduce you to someone many of you have met, but whose essential blessedness you have yet to glimpse. I want you to meet Murray, who became my father-in-law some 29 years ago when God softly whispered to me, "Don't wait." Murray, like my wife Michelle, like me, is a mourner. As he lost Terry November, his beloved wife of 60 years, just 6 months ago. Murray, you should know, is an astounding man. Quiet, sometimes reserved. I surely didn't appreciate his full character until recently. In fact, it was Cantor Doug who opened my eyes in a new way when I re-met Murray on a spring trip to Italy with Congregation Orami. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Murray grew up in Brooklyn as the only father of a child who died so young that Murray has nary a memory of him, and of a mother, Ethel, who had the incredible strength to clean floors to make a living and keep a roof over their heads. Murray grew up with so little that on an upcoming trip to revisit the Brooklyn of his childhood, he said he needs only to visit a few places, as his family never had the means to go anywhere that far from home. Yet Murray wasn't destined to remain in this circumscribed life too long. He joined the Army, serving on bases in New Jersey, Texas, and Washington State. The Army was his ticket out into a greater world that he couldn't wait to see. There, as a medic, he learned to drive for the first time. How? On ambulances. Then he was invited to join a friend on a weekend trip to Los Angeles. And there, he was introduced to Terry. Terry quickly became his girlfriend, and when he returned to base, they wrote letters every day. To read their letters is to witness a love affair that just wouldn't wait. They made plans until the next letter, until their next visit. Together, they raised 3 children who made them grandparents 5 times over. Now, as Terry's world shrunk, first from agoraphobia, a pervasive anxiety disorder, and later from MS, multiple sclerosis, Murray simultaneously took care of her and found ways to explore the world close to home. On days when Terry's discomfort kept her at home, Murray was both by her side and out in the world. He did the grocery shopping and the driving, yet followed her lead. Or rather, she took the lead and he kind of followed along. Over the years, they teamed up in many ways, including sharing responsibility for their retail craft store called Arts and Crafts and Things in Orange County. As Terry's MS progressed, from needing a walker to being confined in a wheelchair, Murray was by her side at every point. Together, they transitioned through various stages of her illness, always sharing in abiding love. Now, Terry insisted that Murray not wait behind. She told him to keep going deep-sea fishing, keep up as a Century City realtor, keep shooting pictures at the zoo and Descanso Gardens, keep exploring his love for nature's beauty. Now, for all of us, life might shrink and expand. For them, it expanded and sometimes shrunk. But this once poor Brooklyn boy just kept going. He didn't wait for everything to fall into place. He adapted to new circumstances, living and loving as best as he could, taking it one day at a time. And then, this past March, Terry died. Sometimes widows and widowers shut down, closing themselves off. But that didn't happen here. Heartbroken though he was, Murray fell back into the healthy habits he developed over the years. He continued to take walks. He continued to hang out with that group of guys for breakfast. He continued sharing life with his children and grandchildren. He doubled down on his photography, a hobby that actually he picked up later in life, but that energized him. Soon after his beloved died, Murray accepted an invitation to join Michelle and me and 28 others on a temple trip to Italy. We wanted to stay by his side, and we hoped that the trip would bring him some comfort. But what happened? It was amazing beyond our wildest dreams. We were a group of empty nesters, all experienced travelers. And as we made our way through Italy, Murray emerged as our rock and our inspiration. When the early mornings and long bus trips began to fray our nerves, he remained patient and resolute. When walking over those city cobblestones tired us out, he kept going, motivated by the desire to capture every sight on his camera. When the staircases ascended too steeply, he just put one foot in front of the other until high above the city, he marveled at the sights. And then he called down to us to join him up top. When we wanted to fetch, he continued to quell. Why? Because somewhere over the course of his 86 years, Murray seemed to make a choice. Instead of succumbing to the sadness of limitations and loss, he chose hope and the promise of a new day. He refused to stop and wait for things to get better. As my dad, Ken, would say, Murray just took it as it came and found ways to find blessing in life. Tomorrow morning we will sing that prayer, Unatana Tokef, who shall live and who shall die, that stirring prayer. Well, Unatana Tokef propels us to follow Murray's lead. It says that in the face of the challenges of life, broken relationships, illness, financial stress, loss, death, it says don't stop to wait for it to get better. Instead, do teshuvah, tefillah, tzedakah. Repair your relationships, build up your spiritual core, and give to others to lift them up. Or as Murray taught us in Italy and taught my family throughout his life, it means don't wait. Don't wait to say I love you. Don't wait to say I'm sorry. Don't wait to climb out of the cesspool into which you might have descended. Don't wait. You've been given a gift, he says. It's called life, and you get only one. Don't waste it by waiting. Instead, redirect your life so that you can celebrate it. Now, after a particularly long day in Rome, we sat at an outdoor cafe sharing a glass of wine over dinner, and our teacher, Reb Murray, waxed philosophically. After reviewing with us the pictures he had taken, this Brooklyn boy who hadn't been out of the country for 10 years or more exclaimed in wonder, "It's a miracle. Maybe I'm already in heaven," he said. "I've got 3 wonderful kids, 5 beautiful grandchildren. I've had 60 years waking up to my beloved Terry. I've got my health. Look, I get to travel. God did a good job. God shared goodness with me. Maybe this is a sample of heaven." This from a man whose wife, his life, died just 5 or 6 weeks before. Amar Reb Murray. Reb Murray teaches, count your blessings, repair your relationships, and live a life of kindness. It's Yom Kippur. There's work to be done. Don't wait. Shana Tova.